kind of
I
thing.
don't want to send them all. It's a refresher.
I'm getting too broke.
Hello? So it is 7:03, we'll call this June 13th, 2016, Halifax Finance Committee to order. On the agenda tonight, we have mail, reserve fund transfers, line item transfers, 7:15 meeting with the fire chief, review and approval of meeting minutes, discussion of budgets, review the calendar, public participation, and adjournment. We are being videoed tonight by Area 58. Okay, so on the mail, we have a memo from the town accountant to all department heads, committees and boards, end of the year cutoff and carryover procedures. Please remember, anything ordered in fiscal 16, including services provided, must be paid for by fiscal 16 monies. All money appropriated at town meeting in Article 4 can only be spent within the fiscal year. This money can only be used for purchases made and services received before July 1st, 2016. So please keep track of any ordering you do in June and be sure you have received all the invoices you are expecting and that these invoices are dated June 30th or before. We will pay June 30th invoices until July 15th. That means they need to be in the accounting office by Tuesday, July 12th to be processed. Anything that you purchase that you do not have an invoice for by July 15th will need to be encumbered. To encumber money to pay an invoice, you must send a memo to the accountant's office listing the account number, vendor name, date of the order, product purchase, service provided, and exact invoice amount. The amount has to be enough to pay for the invoice, so please contact the vendor to get the exact amount. To include shipping and handling or service charges. If money is not encumbered for a fiscal 16 bill, you will need to bring it to this next special town meeting and present it on town meeting floor to have the funds to pay the bill. To carry over article accounts, please list the accounts by the account number listed on the budget status report. If there are any old articles that have a balance in them that is no longer needed, please let me know so I can close them out. All special revenue accounts such as gift accounts, revolving accounts, and grants will automatically be carried forward and do not need to be listed. Thank you for your cooperation. If there are any questions, please feel free to call Sandra Nolan, town accountant. Next is from the Selectman's Assistant to all boards, committees, and departments, reorganization of the Board of Selectmen. At its meeting Tuesday, May 24th, the Halifax Board of Selectmen reorganized as following: Chairman Troy Guerin, Vice Chair Tom Milius, Clerk Kim Roy. If you have any questions, please contact our office. Thank you, Ellen McSherry, Selectman's Assistant. To all department heads, committees, and boards from the town accountant. New procedure for new vendors. I know that you are all aware that if you use a vendor that the town has never used before, we require a federal tax identification number. In addition, we now require that we get a copy of their W-9 form and keep it on file in the treasurer's office. So when you place an order with a new vendor, please request their tax ID and a copy of their W-9 form. You can attach the W-9 form to the bill schedule when you pay the invoice, and we will forward it to the treasurer's office. Thank you, Sandra Nolan, town accountant. A copy of the beacon. So,
Can I ask a question?
yes.
More for Sandy. Sandy, is there a vendor qualification process? Or as long as somebody has a federal tax ID, they can be, business can be done with them? Okay.
And if they're an individual, it's a, we get their social security number. Like if it's a sole,
Yeah,
like a,
yeah.
yeah.
But there is no formal town
No,
vendor
this is more,
qualification process?
so that we know which vendors we're supposed to be sending out 1099s to, that type of thing. The auditors always look for it, so the treasurers are trying to keep a comprehensive file on.
Anybody else coming for you guys?
No, it's us.
Okay. It's early, but why don't we go to you guys at 7:15?
Okay, I could not remember if I did my presentation with this meeting, with this board or not.
You guys remember?
A formal presentation for the
Staffing.
additional staffing?
Yeah.
I don't think we got a formal.
Okay,
I think it was
so-
more just a,
So in lieu of the PowerPoint presentation, I just printed out the slides. And I'll go run through it. I'll go on through it a couple times. So this started off back in August of last year. We convened the fire study committee to look at a couple issues. Prior to reestablishing that committee, in my head, we'd already come up with a plan, identified a need for additional staffing and came up with a plan on how to potentially fund that staffing. And that was the ambulance billing changes that we did back in January. On the January 14th special town meeting, we implemented those changes. So tonight, that portion was already done. Tonight, I want to go over what the actual staffing plan was and how we're making out with the billing changes. So just to give you a rundown on our current staffing, we have 8 full-time firefighter paramedics. We have 20 on-call firefighters, 13 of which are EMTs. Our staffing, 7 days a week, 24/7, is 2 firefighter paramedics on duty. And anytime we have multiple calls, or if we have a large-scale incident, we use a recall system to recall off-duty personnel or our call staff. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions about how we're staffed, but that's pretty good recap on currently. Some of the problems that we identified is we don't meet any of the recommendations of NFPA, the ICMA, the IAFC. All of these organizations have documents on efficient staffing levels and recommended staffing levels. And they're all, most of them are 4 to 5 man engine companies and things like that, that we know we're never going to meet. I would never expect us to meet them, but our goal is to try to get a little bit closer to them and address some of the firefighter safety issues. Right now, the stations are basically unmanned when the full-time staff goes to the hospital. 2 paramedics on duty basically takes care of 1 ambulance call. Anything over and above that, we need to recall additional staff. And up until a couple weeks ago, and I'll talk about that, the stations were completely unmanned. So the full-time staff would be gone sometimes 8 hours of the day at the hospital, because 1 call takes roughly 2 hours. And if they do 4 transports in a day, which isn't uncommon, at least 8 hours of that day, there's absolutely no one left at the fire station. I'm there Monday through Friday, but on weekends, nights, that type of thing. The issue, when we do have additional calls during that time frame, like I said before, we recall off-duty personnel. And one of the big issues with that is we're adding at least 5 minutes to the response time. Every time we tone out, we have a second medical call, we tone out for that call, and you're just adding the time frame. It takes someone from their home to get in their car, drive to the fire station, pick up the ambulance, and now drive to the patient's house. And in some cases, say it was Elm Street, for example, we have a couple firefighters that live on Elm Street. Just think about the time that's lost in doing that. So it's considerable. The call personnel or the callback system is somewhat unpredictable. There have been multiple occasions, we use the mutual aid system pretty heavily, but just last year we had, I believe it was 15 calls where no one came back. There was absolutely no one from the Halifax Fire Department whatsoever, and then they go outside to mutual aid. But we've had other situations where we got 1 person back, and to some extent it almost confuses the issue a little bit, because the dispatcher waits another minute to see if anyone else is going to sign on before we're looking for that mutual aid resource. And and depending on the emergency, every minute makes a big difference. And we're increasingly dependent on mutual aid. So roughly at least 50 times a year, mutual aid ambulances are doing our transport and getting the ambulance revenue from those transports.
Chief, before you go,
Yeah.
if we do a on-call response, do you require 2 responders, or it goes out to mutual aid?
So for an ambulance, so if it's we
For a medical?
For a medical call, we need 2 people to staff the ambulance. They have to be two. We have several people in the department that are not trained in EMS and they're all grandfathered in personnel who've been on the department for a long time. But everyone new is trained at least at the EMT level or paramedic level. But when we receive an ambulance call, we need 2 people to staff, 2 EMS certified people to staff that.
And you're
staff the
applying for
ambulance.
that for insurance purposes, et cetera?
The state requires that. An ambulance isn't supposed to go, technically, an ambulance isn't supposed to respond as an ambulance without two people assigned to it.
Thanks.
But just quickly, if the 2 full-time paramedics go on the first run,
Right.
you have 2 EMTs on the second, correct? Or
The full-time staff have the opportunity, if they're off duty, to come back also.
Okay.
So there's a possibility we could have a paramedic, and right now we actually have 2 people on the call staff that are paramedics, and they seem to be, one of them just came on a short period ago, and he's fairly active. So we have had situations where we can staff it, ALS. The second call, like I said, it's just it's fairly unpredictable.
does it create a situation where you have 2 EMTs, vice an EMT and a paramedic?
So yeah, that happens quite often. Most of the I would say probably 75% of the time on the second medical call, we have 2 EMTs respond. And it's an issue. So depending on the circumstances of the call, the 2 EMTs have picked up paramedics in surrounding towns to come on. But that initial, it's 15 minutes or 20 minutes before we're picking up that second paramedic in, say, Hanson. The patients without ALS care during that time frame. That's one of the things that we were looking to address. And the other issue, which I didn't list on here, was the amount of times that people show up to the station, and we have walk-in medicals to the fire station basically every single week. We have at least 1 walk-in medical, and there are probably 10 times a year when people show up at the fire station and we have no one there at all. So there's a little call box on the front of the station, and basically they're just dialing 911 from the station. But I can tell you, I think it was about a month ago, we had someone who showed up, had to use the call box because the primary ambulance was out on a call, and they waited in the parking lot 15 minutes from Hanson for the Hanson ambulance to come to the station to transport them to the hospital. So it's a concern for us. I just included the next slide. The problem's certainly been raised for a long time. I have some quotes from Chief Carrico's been quoting it back to 2010, and it's actually goes back a little bit further than that of what the problem is, and the aging population, how these things affect call volume, and the increase in EMS calls. This chart is the next chart is what's happened to our call volume. So 2006 is when they went with advanced 2 people on duty, we're an advanced life support ambulance. So we've seen an increase since 2006 in the demand for ALS calls.
Are there any trends that you're seeing that create that uptick?
Well, so if you look at the census, since 2000, I believe that at the 2010 census, the one was the last one, I think. There was a 4-year increase in the median age, and we know there's a direct tie to the age of the population to the demand on EMS. So that could be one contributing factor. And honestly, people, if you go back, people are much more likely to call the ambulance now than they were 10 or 15 years ago. They treat the ambulance almost as the expectations of of the service are much higher. So where people, years ago, they were put in the back of a station wagon and driven to the hospital, people call us now for things that they wouldn't, behavioral type, psychiatric type emergencies and, medical, minor medical problems, but it's major to them at the time. And EMS in general is being treated, eventually there'll be community paramedics that are going in and doing that type of issue, but we see that trend, of more of a reliance on EMS. The next slide talked about the cost. So we took all the surrounding towns and we wanted to show where Halifax was on the scale of per capita, what it cost for fire and EMS protection. As you can see, today we're fairly low, and the proposed staffing plan still leaves us on the lower end compared to other communities, but we just wanted to include that so people would have an idea of what fire protection is costing them.
But when you look at this chart,
Yep.
Berkeley doesn't have a full-time staff, right?
They do not.
And then Carver is a fire only,
So Carver has a fire and they have a separate service EMS,
and then Middleborough is separate ambulance too.
separate ambulance.
So when you look at what we're spending for the fire and
The 20.
ambulance service,
Right.
we're getting a lot more service for those dollars than the surrounding towns.
Correct. And the biggest thing is in the response times, having that personnel at the fire station makes, it speaks for itself on the difference it can make. Just another chart, in case there was questions on that. We wanted to compare how many firefighters were on duty at a particular time. We broke it down per population, so at the bottom of those bar charts, you can see, like, for example, Pembroke, for example, has similar staffing issues to Halifax, where they have one firefighter on duty for 3,800 population. We have one on duty for 3,950 population. And, obviously it's different in Bridgewater, where they have 2,760 per firefighter on duty. Well, we just included it to give you a better picture of how we compare to other area departments. The next chart is a time of day and day of week chart, and it shows the number of incidents that we're seeing at any given time throughout the day and the day of the week. And when we get the next slide will explain it better, but we see a real big increase between 8 a.m. and 6 or 7 p.m. And that's where we're going to try to focus our most experienced personnel and full-time staffing is during those time frames. No real rhyme or reason to day or week, but certainly during those hours is a big difference.
We spent a lot of time doing this chart too.
We did. We spent a lot of time on all of these charts.
I know.
Most of it, the charts all came from vetting out. The study committee basically vetted the process out and asked all the questions. So we prepared they'd ask questions and we'd come back and give them the answers, and that's where a lot of the charts actually came from.
And that's why it was such an effective process, is that,
You know what?
yeah, we had a lot of people with a lot of questions. Yeah. I should get up to the zoning board then.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
So what additional staffing we're asking for is 2 full-time day positions and part-time night coverage. And what we're going to do is we call it recall or backfilling the station. So if you turn to the next slide, we'll show how we're going to do it. So the 2 full-time positions would work a 4-on, 4-off schedule. It's different than the firefighters who work there now and assigned to 24s. We've already worked with the union to negotiate this into their contract. It's something that they're agreeable to. And we'd have 2 personnel, 2 paramedics that we could assign. One would work 4 days on, the next one would come on, so it's continuous. And they would work 6 a.m. To 6 p.m. And at night, from 6, and that's when we have the heaviest, certainly have the heaviest call volume during those hours. But it doesn't mean that the night's still not an issue for a number of reasons. And what we proposed there was to use part-time personnel. And we have a list of firefighters now that we use to supplement the full-time staff when we can't get a full-timer to work or doesn't want to work overtime. We would use them to supplement those night shifts. What I was hoping to do is create some type of incentive-based system, because we know we're still going to have to recall people, and we're going to have incidents that are still going to, we're going to need additional resources. So as an incentive, we want to set up a program that provides an incentive for people to come back. We have a lot of problems with getting people to come back. So if they do come back, the person who comes back the most would have the first opportunity to pick shifts for the following month. And it's a way to keep them engaged. I have another chart, but I didn't include it in this, and it shows how the fire department has changed over the course of the year. So we have a group of firefighters who, Deputy Miller, he's the senior person on the department, and he started back in 1972. And then we have 6 people that fall in that category up until 1987. And then there's a 17-year gap where no one exists. And then everyone else kind of fills in after, all the newer guys fill in after that. And what happened, it's easy to figure out, is that's the time where people started making firefighting a career. So we go to all our surrounding departments, and a lot of them stop in every day. They work in Kingston, they work in Abington, and they work in Middleborough, but firefighting became a little bit more, a lot more of a career, and the volunteer aspect and call aspect kind of dropped off. And what we see in our part-time personnel is, basically younger people who aspire to be career firefighters someday. And so as part of this plan, what I was hoping to do is to keep them engaged in the process. We know eventually they might leave, but if we can get more out of them during that time, it's certainly more cost-effective to utilize them during the night shift coverage when we're not quite as busy, but it keeps them trained, it keeps them engaged, it keeps them working the equipment, and like I said, it will also create an incentive program to get them to come back more when we have bigger incidents that we need to staff.
Chief, if I may?
Yes.
I see where you came up with the 42-hour week, where you're going to have 1 week where you're on 4 days is 48 hours, and next week you'll be on 3 days in that pay period, so to speak.
Right.
Then it'll be 36 hours. Have you taken into account that you're going to have 8 hours of overtime in 1 week versus falling short?
So the firefighter's contract is a 42-hour work week over an 8-week cycle. So this fits into, the 8 hours wouldn't be considered overtime, because I believe, depending on how it's negotiated, firefighters could work up to 56 hours under the FLSA, but our contract stipulates that after 42 hours it becomes overtime. So this 6A to 6P, 4 on, 4 off rotation would not create any overtime for them, for those firefighters. That's pretty much it. As far as the benefits are, I spoke about a lot of them already. We'll fill some major, I didn't talk about recall. So what we've tried it a little bit. One of the issues that we have is when we have second medical calls right now, we recall all available EMTs. We kind of have to do that way because we want to know that we have people coming back. And there are occasions when I have absolutely no one coming back, and I have other occasions when I have 8 people come back. The truth is, I really only need two people to come back. So what we've started doing, and what we hope to continue to do, if this is approved, is we recall every time when the ambulance is going to the hospital. We're trying to recall back to 2 people. We're probably about 40 to 50% covering that time period. And it's been pretty effective in getting that second ambulance out the door. I don't know if 40 is a good number, but under this staffing plan, if we have 3 people assigned to the day shift, 2 will be going to the hospital, and we have an officer on every shift, so the captain or lieutenant would go on the call, be an extra set of hands. And there's I can give you studies if you want to see them on why that's important. On EMS calls, fire calls, it speaks for itself. We're not even supposed to operate unless we have 4 people on a fire scene. But that once the ambulance is en route to the hospital, that captain or lieutenant would come back to the station, and we'd recall 1 person to come back, and that second ambulance would be staffed at the ALS level, because all of our officers are paramedics. So we know when we have that second medical, that ambulance is going to go out the door staffed at the ALS level, which would be a tremendous increase. Even if we didn't get anyone back, we'd still have the captain available to handle minor calls that we have all the time, sometimes even service calls. We're recalling people back to do some of the service call type things we do when that ambulance is at the hospital, so it'd save money there. And we just think it would be a much better service. Even if I try to recall and no one comes back, when that person shows up and is having a heart attack or the allergic reaction, I'll still have at least 1 paramedic in the station that can start providing care for them while they're waiting for the mutual aid ambulance. So while I don't expect that we'll be able to fill every shift, or people will come back for every time, I know there'll be a much higher percentage that we're able to do that. And we've, like I said, we've done it. We've been experimenting with it now for a couple of weeks. We've had second medical. Today was one. We had a second medical called by staff that was in the station. We had a fire a couple of weeks ago, and there was no one left in town. But we did call back 2 people, and they were in the station, were able to respond to that brush fire, and made a significant impact on how fast that spread. So, as far as the cost. As I said, we made the changes in the ambulance billing on January 14th, and we knew that we'd see at least a 3-month lapse in time before we start seeing the revenue from those changes come in. So we're seeing it now. We met with Sandy. We think that, what we're asking for in order to make these changes and implement the staffing plan is $210,000. Patty and I met with Sandy last week, and Sandy feels comfortable with what we've seen so far, that the increase in ambulance revenue will be able to cover the staffing plan. You want to talk about what we've brought in so far this year?
Okay,
What we've seen this year?
We have been seeing an increase. We've been having a better year anyways, but we've definitely seen an increase from February, a $12,000 increase, March $11,000, April was $8,500, May was $18,900 more, and so far this month, last year in June, we only brought in $10,900. So far this month, we've already brought in $17,000. So we are seeing those numbers going up quite a bit.
So
What are we averaging? I'm sorry, no.
I was going to ask the same question.
Oh.
Yeah, it never works out as an average. But actually, I did do an average for the increase over those months was about $12,800. Okay, now what we're going to be able, when I looked at the total difference, I projected out the end of this year. So I projected June to be about 21,000. We're already at 17, we're probably going to bring in much more than that. But with that number, I figured out that we would have had an $87,755 increase.
In the current fiscal year.
This year over last year. And if I divided that just by the five months, it came out to 17,000, and then I extended that out by 12, came out to 210. And that's when I told them that's as high as I'll go, 210. I did also look at the averages for the first 6 months this year. Our average bill was $933.66. February through April, the average ambulance bill was $2,279. Now, that's just the bill. It's it's up 244%, is that how you say it? So it's quite an increase in the billing. We know that we're not gonna realize
Those numbers you gave
exactly
were
that.
revenue though, not billing numbers for those.
The other numbers were revenue, yes. All right, so I'm at a little happy medium right here. I asked them as far as the number of calls this year compared to last year, because I want to make sure that the increase that I'm seeing isn't from more calls. And we're running right about the same.
Well, actually, we saw, for whatever reason, we saw a significant decrease for the month of February. And if you look historically back years, it's all over the place.
Well, I'm sure the year before with all that heavy snow you had.
Right. These are medical, there was 17, for whatever reason, there was 17 less transports this February than last. And if like I said, you can't really gauge it by 1 month of a year because the chart, it's all over the place. Sandy's,
But the difficulty is too, that the billing
Charlie,
the
The
number,
billing doesn't always cut, like the revenues don't come in the month after it's.
yeah, they don't
billed.
match up.
It's
That way.
all over the place. So obviously, the longer time that you have to look at the revenues, the better off you're going to be. But with the rates increasing, in some cases by 3 times, or more than 3 times what they were, and the billing increasing about 2.5 times what it was, I think I'm comfortable with the 210,000. Now, that means that I'm gonna go from estimating a $201,000 revenue for FY16 to a $411,000 revenue for FY17. I have talked to my DOR rep. He said to send me the information that I've gathered, the rates and everything else. Because even if I go in and say that, DOR can come back and say, yeah, we're not comfortable with that, you're gonna pull it down. But I've given him the information, I've already talked to him on the phone, and what I'm counting on too is the fact that if we have that extra staffing, we're picking up that second medical. If we're picking up that second medical, that's more revenue, instead of giving the revenue to a different town. So you're looking at the increase in rates and hopefully the increase in runs.
and if the second ambulance, besides what Sandy had said, getting some of those extra medicals that are going out to outside agencies, the second medical will now be staffed ALS. So just on the flat rate of the bill, the difference in ALS, and most of our calls are ALS. BLS ambulance is $1,250 and ALS is $1,900. So every time we get that ambulance out, staffed at the ALS level, the patient gets much better care, but on the other side, the revenue is much higher also. And, Sandy was comfortable with the 210, and I know we can make the staffing plan work at that number. I personally think it's gonna end up being a little bit higher, because as we said, the revenue was divided over the 5 months, when we really only started seeing the increases over the last 3, because the first couple months when the bill goes out in the mail, it takes months for the insurance companies to process the bill.
Sandy, could you just refresh my memory on the last 3 months, what the average increase? Well, that was for the whole 5 months.
Right. So actually, April was a low month, because April was only 8,500. May was 18,937. And I don't have June's in yet.
But you're projecting that
But
at
I'm
about
projecting
21?
it's gonna be at least 21. Like I said, right now we're at 17,000. We're only halfway through the month. Patty said she has a bunch of checks to turn in, so that's a good thing.
So the last 3 months is roughly 16,000 on an average?
Yeah.
So on the percentage of calls was something else that we looked at on fire study. Are you seeing the same mix of Medicare and private?
I think it's fairly close. It's fairly close, yeah. I mean, and exactly what we said has happened. The Medicare bills go out, and whether or not the bill's 2,000 or they're only paying 5.
What, the most is
Yeah.
438.
So all those Medicare people, we're still only getting 438, but the private insurance does cover what everyone else bills. And like I said, I still think our rate is lower than
In the auto.
private industry, and the auto accidents.
The
sure.
auto accidents, some of those April bills were auto, we had a high number of auto
Auto.
accidents in April, so those payments won't be coming
They
in
take
probably
a
until
while.
after July, they take a lot
Yeah, those
longer.
insurance companies like.
Sandy, quick question. All these revenues go into an enterprise account that,
No, they do not go into an enterprise account. They're part of the local receipts.
okay,
So the local receipts offset what they take out of what the budget before the tax bill goes out. So we have a budget of, say, 20,000, and we're getting, 20 million, and we're getting money from the state that comes out, money from the local receipts, money from our enterprise accounts, and then what's left goes into is what we have to tax the people.
But the ambulance revenue is currently in the local receipts section.
Right.
So it's one of the sheets that
So
Sandy
it would
gives
be
us.
increasing.
okay.
So that's in the local receipts section is where she's saying she's comfortable increasing that revenue. Do you have a cost sheet for the increase? Because I know you had it at the other one, the staffing.
What the staffing cost,
Yeah,
broken down per person.
I think you had it in the other.
I did have another one, but I had to make a couple modifications. I didn't have a chance to update that because of the contracts that were just negotiated changed that number. So this number is based on the new contracts. And what's also included in that number is the cost of training. Firefighters have a required amount of training. The training cost is budgeted into that number also.
So he has a breakdown of what the full-time firefighter cost is,
Right.
what the benefit cost is, what the training schedule is.
Part-time cost, and then
And then the
yeah,
part-time.
But the total overall cost is 210,000.
it's 210,000. Yeah,
So maybe if you could email us a copy of that,
sure. Yeah.
that way everyone else can see.
See how we came up with that
Yeah,
number.
because I know I saw it. but-
Yeah.
The other thing I'm kind of interested in is, we talk hypothetically that we're going to be utilizing more equipment more often. That's going to put an extra burden on us to maintain our equipment, replace it on a faster schedule. If we're putting more miles on vehicles, we're going to have to replace it on a tighter schedule. So I think we need to figure out what the total cost is besides just labor. We're currently scheduling to replace ambulances on a, how often?
Right.
7-year basis.
It's 2008 that we're replacing next. So,
So that would, if we're utilizing those more, we're gonna need to accelerate the replacement of that. So we need to realize some funding from outside of the 210,000 that Sandy put out there.
the only thing I'll say about we may pick up 50 additional calls per year. Time, if you figure out the mileage on that, it'd be plus 30 additional miles. We're able to staff that ambulance at the BLS level now, so the mileage is still being put on the ambulance. We're just not staffing it quick enough, by no means quick enough, and in my opinion, we're not staffing it at the ALS level where we should be.
But we'll also be realizing more utilization of the ambulances, of the fire apparatus, that we're gonna be able to give more mutual aid to other towns, I would think.
Fire apparatus, I don't think the number for fire apparatus will change at all, because we're, the additional staff will be on the engine that's responding. So I don't see that there would be a big increase in fire apparatus use.
I guess I'm not talking a huge increase, but I think we need to keep in mind that we will be using these things more often if we have more people there to staff. We're not gonna miss as many calls.
But, you know, but I think there's a little bit of apples and pears here. Replacing the ambulance really is a capital, you know, covering the cost with the revenue is really operating expense, and where we increase the budget for O2 and, you know, your supplies, ambulance supplies, that would be a first concern, is that we're not only, you know, covering the staffing, but covering the supplies that are required to support.
But even the capital items, I think we have a responsibility to the taxpayers to keep that in mind.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, I think it's in the discussion that covering operating expenses with revenue generated is probably the first priority.
Yeah.
Yeah, as far as the apparatus, as far as the use of the ambulance, like I said, I'm hoping that we can pick up an additional 50 calls. I'm not sure how much that is going to change the schedule of replacement for the ambulance. You know, by our replacement plan now is pushing 10 years, so, and a lot of it's because, you know, wear and tear on the parts, but as things get older and age, they also deteriorate. So I don't know what impact 50 additional calls would have. I don't think it's going to be very significant. And like I said, fire engines, I think it'll remain the same. I can't see how staffing would increase that, because that additional staff will be responding on that engine. But certainly something we can keep track of, you know, keep track of.
You have a question, Linda?
Well, I wasn't so much about the replacement, I was just thinking regular vehicle maintenance would probably increase.
Well, we asked for an increase this year, and I think we were given an increase this year, which is actually, this year, again, vehicle maintenance has been our toughest. We may come back looking for a...
Are you in that?
We're not in that pile, but there's a pretty good possibility we're gonna end up in that pile for vehicle maintenance. You know, the local mechanic is great, and he's able to handle things like oil changes, but pretty much anything that gets beyond oil changes or brakes or something like that, we're sending out. And the costs are astronomical. We thought up until a week ago, we were doing phenomenal in vehicle maintenance, and an ambulance broke down on the way to the hospital, and it's a $4,000 ambulance repair bill that we managed to get Colonial Ford to break it down to the exact number we had left in our vehicle maintenance budget. So if nothing breaks in the next week, we may be okay, but we certainly cut it close this year again on vehicle maintenance.
Which gave out?
It ended up, it had to be towed. We had a patient in the back. We had to have the ambulance towed, transferred the patient over to Brewster Ambulance in Plymouth. And I guess it was 5 fuel injectors, the vacuum pump, and the glow plugs. So
That was on
That was
the
the
older
older
one, right?
that was the 2008, yeah.
So just on the staffing plan, so when he talks about 2 full-time employees, he means for the total of the department. So he's gonna go from 8
to 10.
to 10.
Right.
So there's only gonna be 1 additional full-time member working those hours. So there'll be 3 full-time guys on.
Right. And some of the things I didn't talk about, why it's important to put those full-time guys during the day, is we have we do the best we can, but we lack in some of the our fire prevention program is not what it should be. We're not out doing the inspections that we need to be doing. Having that captain or lieutenant available during the day to start addressing those functions will improve, maybe not through as much of a direct impact that you see, and, we take someone to the hospital or we make a rescue, but the fire prevention programs and that type of thing are really important, and being out doing the inspections, code compliance type of things that we really just do not have anyone to assign to. Most of that type of thing lands on me, and I do the best that I can with it, but it's, we have a lot of businesses and things in town that we just are not getting into every single year like we should.
So where does this discussion go? Does it go to the selectmen?
So I went to the selectmen back when we did the changes in the ambulance rates. And I can speak for at least two of them. Their question for me was, well, if we improve the ambulance rates, what can you do with this, are you gonna be able to improve the service? So they made a direct tie to that. I know I've already presented this at the selectmen's meeting the same time that we presented the changes in the ambulance rates. And I believe we're scheduled for the July 12th.
Well, we're going to have a town meeting on the 18th or the 25th of July. Primary reason is the school, because we have a funding deadline from the School Building Assistance Bureau to fund the first stage, the feasibility study stage of the school roof project. But if we're ready, if the figures will jive with what we need, then we could put an article on that special town meeting also for the fire department staff. But I think Sandy rightfully is being very cautious about making sure that the money's going to be there. That's why she called, sort of the preempt, called DOR to confirm with them what they're going to need and have them look at the figures. Because we don't want to be in a situation that we appropriate the money in July and find out in September when we're trying to get a tax rate set, or October, that DOR says, nope, sorry, not happening. You don't have the money to do it. And we've already hired the people and such, so.
That's why we had the meeting with Sandy 2 weeks ago. It's basically to make sure we're all on the same page, that she was comfortable with the number. It was the number that we needed, and I think we're pretty much there with that.
You guys have any other questions?
The only other question I had, do you see any industry trends that are gonna maybe mess with your projections? I know some of the insurance companies are sending out more home health aides rather than people making multiple ambulance calls.
Right. I don't think that's gonna be a huge impact. What actually is reassuring is there's the legislations right now to tie ambulance billing rates to give complete discretion to the municipality to fund their service. So if anything, we'll have more discretion to align our ambulance billing with what the costs are, and the insurance companies will have to pay those bills. So I can't totally predict the future, other than I think that in the foreseeable future, I don't see any changes.
So the staffing part, I guess, just to talk about that. So you'll have 3 guys on shift. If they take off in the ambulance to the hospital, you'd have 1 guy back at the station, and you would recall
One
one
guy.
guy. And you'd have a schedule set up for that person that you would.
No, the way we're doing recalls, we just announce it over our frequency. We just say, we need 1 firefighter for station coverage, and the first one that signs on with their portable radio comes in.
Okay.
So the dispatch will just acknowledge, we'll make a requesting 1 firefighter for station coverage. Portable 17, there's portable 17 has that, and then the dispatcher will acknowledge that the station's been covered.
Okay.
We recall, we're trying to limit the amount of waste. Honestly, some of this will help to eliminate some of the areas that we waste. And picking up, you'd be surprised how many times when we go to a motor vehicle accident, and right now we have 2 people. The captain, the officer, and 1 paramedic. The paramedic responds in the ambulance by himself, and the captain or officer follows in the engine. And it happens at least once a week where we have to leave that engine, and then we're recalling people just to come back because we have an engine left on Route 58 somewhere. So, those little efficiencies, I think, will make a big difference.
You guys have any other?
I have a non-sequitur, if I could. Just out of curiosity, just with the way you operate and the radios and the recall, if we went to this Dispatching in Duxbury, is there any change in that?
No
Any
change.
impact?
So they'll dispatch us per our guidelines. So they do the exact same thing in Duxbury. Duxbury Fire Department does it. Now they recall their own personnel. And actually, they have some technology that will make our recall system a little bit better. They use a system called I Am Responding. So from people's smartphones, it's an app. If we had a building fire, for example, and they tone out the entire department, you just click that you're responding, and I, as the incident commander or dispatch, can look down at my phone and see I have 5 guys coming back, or I have no one coming back. So those little things, I think, will actually be a little bit better.
Great, thank you.
Good. I think if you had that chart, that would be.
The breakdown.
Yeah,
Yeah, I can email it out.
because I think if you had the town meeting too, and then Sandy, a chart to put in there with the updated revenues, I think that's, would
Okay.
work out well for the town meeting to have it in your packet.
Yep.
Or PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Chief, one other question.
Yeah.
Looking at this bar graph.
Yes.
Firefighters per population, under your new plan, what would it go to for one per, call it 4,000?
I'd have to do the math on that. So it'd be I think we use 7950 as the
7,900. And your average is
Divided by 3.
3,950. Okay. I
I
can do the math.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
2633.
Thanks, Chief.
You got more?
So I have a question. No, it's basically, so we received a grant from FEMA to replace all of our portable radio equipment.
Oh, that was the multi-town one, right?
No, this was one, we received this one about 3 weeks ago, roughly. And it's 62, the total award was $62,100 to replace our portable radios. And there's a 5% match. I don't know how, and I believe our match is 29.57. So what our hope was to do a transfer from the leftover funds from this year. Initially, I thought about taking out the entire article, taking that match, the 29.57 out of our radio account for next year, but like last year, we used that. That doesn't address like truck radios in the trucks, portables that people take home, monitor batteries, that type of thing, or infrastructure problems like we had with the cables and the repeater system. So that 5,000 really is to take care of those type of things. The matching amount of 29.57, what my thought was to see what if we had leftover money in a particular line item and to transfer that either into expenses or
the radio account.
yeah, to be the matching portion of that grant.
So just a line item transfer to an article?
That's my thought.
All
I don't know
right.
if we can do
My
that.
understanding was the 5,000 was going to be the matching.
Well, that was the initial thought. That was. I'm just bringing
Boy,
it
you're
up
getting pushy.
for. I'm just bringing it up for discussion.
I don't know, I don't think we can do a transfer into an article,
No.
right? We can't transfer into an article.
Opinion, Charlie?
Maybe.
Could we just?
My concerns are we're moving it from the FY16 budget to be used, I mean, well,
FY16.
it would be for FY16?
Yeah.
So you need it now, all right, then I'm just.
But we already have a radio line item. It's
Right,
not a line
right.
item, it's an article.
So what you want to do is take it from your expense or one
One
of
of
Well,
the.
you would have already used the money from the article for this fiscal.
Well, the radio article's gone.
Okay.
Because
so
we
that's
use
off the
that
table.
to,
Do you have it in your expense account?
that's what I'm thinking, either
Do you
expenses.
have that amount left in your expense account? Because I really, yeah, I don't see it financially with that. You might even be able to use it right from that. I just have to look at your lines that are in there.
Okay.
There's one on there that says pages or something on it. Like a
Yeah.
little- yeah.
So I think that it would, and I'll double check with Charlie when it comes back, that it would fit the bill, that you'd be able to use expense money for that purpose.
Okay, so it wouldn't
But
even need to
I'll
be a
talk
line
to
item
Charlie.
transfer.
You may not even need to be.
Okay,
If he thinks we should do it, then we'll do a line item transfer.
okay. That's all I wanted to mention.
Okay.
I didn't mean to blindside you.
I'm like, what's he asking right now?
I don't know, just one of those procedural questions.
Yeah, it really is.
Because I think the change in amount of the article, I think you need to vote at a town meeting.
Right, so maybe we could just do it out of the expense line item.
So 62, okay?
That's what the grant is. So
So what do you think you're gonna replace with that?
27 portable radios. The portable radios, it's almost $2,500 per radio with the charger, so it won't make us, the goal someday, and I think I've talked about this committee, I've talked to so many committees, eventually everything's switching to digital.
Yeah.
So with this grant, we'll be all of our portable radios, not the ones that guys carry with them home, but
Yeah.
all of the portable radios on the trucks will be digital capable, which is, and the new tower will have a digital mobile radio in it. My car will have a digital mobile radio in it. And while fire departments haven't really started making the complete switch over to digital yet, like East Bridgewater Police Department has already made the switch over to digital. And it impacts, because when you're a neighboring, and East Bridgewater Fire technically could do it at any time because they have the infrastructure already in place to do it. But once they make that switch, we lose communications with our mutual aid partners. So it's kind of an issue. I'm glad that we got the grant because it really brings us much closer to that.
So is that something you've worked with the other chiefs in the area that we do mutual aid with, when the switchover for all those would be?
No one's really, the fire side is kind of like, seems to, we have, any federal money that we get towards radios has to be digital, P25 digital capable. So they force it, but as far as when we make the actual switch will be dependent on departments. I know, from what I understand, West Bridgewater will be making the switch very soon. East Bridgewater already has the infrastructure in place to do it, but they seem, the fire chief over there seems a little more, like, he doesn't seem anxious to do it because he knows the impact that it would have. It would kind of isolate them, so I just think eventually one department will do it, and then all of a sudden a bunch of other departments will start doing it. When that happens, I don't know.
But all the equipment that we get this year is all digital capable
All
for the tower.
all the stuff that we got for the school and the highway department and all that, that's all digital equipment, but it's not public safety digital equipment. It's digital, and I'll tell you, the DPW has much clearer radios right now than the fire and police department does, but it's a different type of
System.
digital. The public safety is called P25 digital. No one else can be on it. So a non-public safety agency couldn't have that. So it's not necessarily compatible, but on the same idea. The equipment that we put with the new antenna and stuff, and the cables that we replaced would certainly support that, but the big expense would be repeaters for the police and repeaters for the fire would be the big expense.
So you have that grant going already, huh?
Yeah, we'll work on that one next week. So, all right, well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, chief.
So
Okay.
my plan is to get the information to the DOR rep as soon as possible, and then he said he'd look at it and give me an opinion, because it is quite a jump,
Well, and
yeah.
we still need to, it still needs to keep accelerating to meet that 210,000 threshold. It's still falling short even just using the 3-month average.
Yeah, I'm at 155.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just using the 3-month average when they say the bills are actually starting to catch up, I'm at 192. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you heard about a possible, well, it's going to be a special town meeting, but we don't know the amount yet for the school system. So Charlie is working on that number to come up with. Then we're gonna have to find the funding source for it.
We're thinking it's gonna be about 100,000.
Okay.
Well, we're thinking of asking about 100,000 when we talked, there was a conference call the other day when we talked about numbers. It came out to about 80,000 and we said, or I think it was about 70 or 80. We said probably would want to go 100 to have contingency money just in case.
Yeah, I didn't hear, I had a doctor's appointment, but I
Yeah.
don't leave, so I didn't hear that part.
Yeah, so at this point in time, I think that the best place to take it from is stabilization.
Is that for the entire project or just for the
No, that's
specific
for the-
phase?
That is for
First
the
phase.
First phase.
OPM
Okay,
and the design.
okay.
Do we have a total project cost even
But we will
ballpark
not
yet?
have that until we do this. The OPM has a limit on what they can charge, and we get assigned an OPM from the
They have an
school
approved
municipal-
list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Charlie's better at, Charlie, I'm just
Yeah.
giving them some information,
Right.
so. I was saying that we were thinking about 100,000.
Well, yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be less than that, because
Okay.
the thing is that what we've got right now is the first phase. It's going to be feasibility study and schematic. It's not construction documents, it's not going out to bid. The sequence is that we go to town meeting in July, get the money that's necessary. Then you are assigned us an OPM, who then works with us to, even though, to negotiate with the architect or the engineer for the project. The OPMs and the engineers are already
Approved
vetted.
list.
Yeah, and we get them randomly. We don't get a choice. But the OPM works with us in negotiating. The OPM fee is set, at least in this phase. The architect fee is not set. So the OPM is our representative and works with us to negotiate a particular amount with the architect. We spent some time with the folks from the state saying, basically, that's not how we do business. I mean, for any other construction project, we want to go to town meeting with a contract in hand that says this is going to be the amount. We're not able to do that this time because we have nobody to work with and negotiate until we get the money. I think it's the wrong sequence, but in essence, I think that what the state, I don't know this, the building authority is very Darwinian in this. It's, even just setting the application in is a major burden. And then they will put in these barricades that you're forced to jump over. And so unless you're ready in 60 days after they approve your submission, which is what they've done in May, to come up with the money, they figure you're not ready to go. So fine, okay, we got other people who are ready to go.
It's like the first test. Can you go to town meeting and get the money? If so, now we'll go on to the next step.
So they provide examples. The two major elements for us are the roof and we have windows replaced. We have examples of how much other projects have been during the last few years and how much money's been spent, the OPM for the engineering, so we can estimate to some extent. Our big challenge is that we have an intent to do things that the state's not funding. Now, and they know that, and that we're fine, and we know that. But
we don't want to do just the roof and the windows if there are other elements like the siding as an example that we want done, but the state's not going to come up with any reimbursement. So I've got to manufacture a number to put in to cover that. I have no idea how much the siding's going to cost, and therefore I can't even say, okay, I'll pick 10%, I'll pick 15% of the siding cost and add that. I don't know what the siding cost is going to be, and I have no information from the state for that. So we're going to have to put more money in than we think we're going to need, simply because if I'm wrong, then this whole thing gets boxed up.
So the first phase is we approve this amount of money. The state then gives us a list of people to work with.
Well,
Or
gives us an OPM, and then the OPM negotiates with us for the engineer or architect, who's assigned to us.
So then they set up a set of plans.
Right, so when they get a feasibility study done, they get the schematic work done, we go back to town meeting. All that mess goes back to the state in January for approval. If they say yes to that, then we go for the next phase, which is get the construction documents, go out to bid, and get the construction done. We had sort of two choices: have an immediate town meeting in February after getting approval from the state in January, or wait until May. The problem with waiting to May is if we do that, we're not going to get anything done during the summer 17th. So we're talking with everybody who was there. My hope is, let's have a meeting the first Monday in February, get the money necessary, and that's going to include construction money, which again, not how we do business. I mean, we're going to have to trust with the OPM and the architect that they're going to have a good, solid number that will withstand whatever bidding we go through. And so that we don't have to go back to town meeting sometime later for more money, and also delay the project. Because my hope is, I mean, we're not doing the school building, we're only doing elements of it. And at least the roof, the idea is to have everything in line so that the kids leave in the middle of June of 17, and they go in and get the roof done. The windows, from what everybody there at the table said, and the folks from the state said, take longer, because they're specifically, I mean, the roof materials are the same wherever, as long as you're using that type of material, it's the same roof wherever you are. The windows, however, are in essence specific to the building, and therefore it takes longer to get them manufactured. So it may be sometime during the fall that we get the windows in. Then the other elements I'm not sure about, things like the siding. I would hope we could get the siding done during the summer also.
Well, the windows aren't in, probably can't finish the siding.
Yeah, I think it'd be good in fact.
Okay, well, you tell me. I mean, I'm not in the business, so whatever we can get during the summer.
They're just talking about doing the single pane windows across the front of the building.
Yeah.
So
For
we
instance,
could
the
start the
siding
siding
on
on
the
the
back,
other
yeah.
sides.
Playing field side, for
Yeah.
instance, needs to be replaced, those things.
So the February meeting would be override possibility.
Yeah,
What?
yeah, we'd have to tie it into a special election in February also.
Oh, it'd have to be in February.
Well, if we would, because we're not gonna, we can't proceed unless we know we have the money. We don't have the money unless if we're gonna make it contingent on a debt exclusion.
Okay. Can we ask Barbara to give an estimate?
For how much an election?
Yeah, so we can put that into this town meeting, so the money's there.
Sure. I mean, it should be small in
Makes
November.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, just say we know we're,
Well,
because we're gonna have to pay for this one, because
Yeah.
this will be in the fiscal
Right.
year, we weren't expecting that. We're
well, it's
talking-
next fiscal year, yeah. Fiscal year
Yeah.
17, yeah.
I just think, because we just passed that budget, so.
Right.
So we'll have that, a possibility of a special in September, depending upon what goes on with the COA.
Yep,
And then another possibility of a special in February.
yep.
So 3 specials, I don't think she can make up that cost in her.
Well, she can't, I can't either. I need a couple $1,000s per meeting to get the
Just-
warrants printed
yeah,
out and mailed out. I
Right.
mean, the printing will be small, I mean, because they're gonna be one-page postcard warrants, I hope. But.
Yeah, I was just thinking if we
Still
don't-
costing close to $1,000 to mail them out.
So if we just put them in this upcoming one, at least we know we've taken care of it for the year and don't
Yeah,
have
I
to.
mean, my dream was that we have everything at the same time in September, but that,
Yeah.
the state is very specific. Don't have the money by July 27th, I think it is, no go. And I'll talk to the board, originally I wanted to do July 25th, and I'm just saying, Charlie, you're waiting for Murphy to show up. Do July.
Did you talk to Barbara?
No,
I did.
okay.
I mentioned that we were headed in a July time, and you need to talk to her because she might have vacation planned or
Well,
whatever.
that's tough.
Well, you need to talk to her.
Okay, so,
I mean, we're gonna have, I mean, everybody, I think the dress code is gonna be.
some of their fault.
Nobody needs to see that room, so. I'll
Uh,
wear my official British
How you bring
uniform or
it in.
something, pith hat or something.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I have to work between now and tomorrow. I mean, I don't have to go to press tomorrow, but I really want to get a closer idea of what the number needs to be.
Was there anything else that anybody, we missed at town meeting that needs to go in?
No, we knew that all these projects we're talking about right now.
Right.
the ones that
Yeah,
we
yeah.
knew were coming up.
I can't think of anything else that's going to come up. If we have something else come up, we'll probably do this.
September one.
Then people have time to settle in. Ooh.
And we'll miss the bills then too. If anybody missed bills, we won't know it.
Yeah, not in July.
You guys have any questions on the school portion of stuff? Okay, I can give you an update of what happened at Silver Lake.
While we're on the school subject.
Yeah. Their attorney came back and advised them to vote to allow the three towns to vote on whether or not to sell the land to Kingston. The motion was made to just allow Silver Lake to sell the land to Kingston. It passed with the 3 Kingston members and 1 Plimpton member. The Halifax delegation voted against it. So now it takes a special act of the legislature to sell the land, to authorize selling of the land, so that the House, the Senate, and the governor will all have to sign off on selling it.
But Halifax can petition our representatives
Not to do
to,
that.
to make it, to add the language that the towns would have to put in the town. meeting.
They could.
So we could try writing a letter.
So we could ask our representative to include that in. So I was thinking that might be a September
Yeah.
special item to talk about selling, to sell the land.
Well, I mean, I assume Silver Lake's gonna be going for special legislation
Yeah.
that you're talking about. So 2 things, I don't know whether they're gonna be able to pull that off between now and early July, because it's an election year, and the legislature's gonna be out of session fairly rapidly after the budget gets done. And then anything that goes through there has to be by unanimous consent. I don't know where my board is, but my feeling on that would be, I think you're aiming at saying to Coulter and to Brady, we're fine with that there'd be legislation giving the ability for Silver Lake to sell property, because apparently they don't have that. The original legislation never listed that as one of the things they could do. There was a belief back in the 50s that why would they ever sell land? So what you want to say is, we're okay with the legislation, but only if it's specific that says it has to go to the 3 towns.
Do you think that's something that the
I
selectmen
don't know.
are gonna talk about tomorrow?
Oh, yeah, they're going to talk about it tomorrow, but I don't know where they are on And I know Maureen, somehow I'm CC'd on a letter that she sent out originally that I saw a response for, but I never saw the original, so I have no idea. I'm printing that, I printed that out, Maureen Springer, that is. And that'd be the reason why I'm talking to the board about it.
Okay. Well, I'm going to contact our representatives and ask them to put that into the special legislation that the 3 towns have to vote on.
Well, are you talking about the special legislation should be voted on by 3 towns, or are you saying that the individual?
The special legislation should call out the 3,
Okay.
3-member towns should have a town meeting vote on it. I just think if we can't, I think the
Right,
district.
they would come to us for the money to begin with, when we purchased the land.
Right.
Let's say they wanted to buy something today, they'd come to the 3 towns and need it.
Right. And I don't think it makes sense to sell the land personally. The land's been set up there for educational purposes for the region. And the way it's laid out, they're saying they can't fit another school there, but there's multiple things that could go there in the future that we don't know. Like I pointed out at the meeting, we didn't know we needed a junior high. I graduated in '98, there was no junior high there. There's a junior high there now. And the only reason why they could do that was because they had the land available. So I just think, we don't know what the future holds. We might need a technical school, and everything's going high-tech. Maybe we work with a local community college to set up a little section of the land or something. They're talking about the administration building. They did talk about that, and they're saying they think it's gonna be $100,000 to do an addition.
Just to make it ADA compliant.
Yeah. And they would be looking to do that at the current physical location. So, they did talk about the school lunch program and how in August, they talked about taking money from the operating budget and using it to fund that missing revenue in the revolving account. So they asked the superintendent to give them an amount at the next meeting for them to approve to pay that position.
So even beyond the fact that they moved the director into the operating budget?
They didn't for this fiscal year,
Okay.
so they're looking to pay that
So they're in.
deficiency, yes,
Yeah.
in their revolving account. And they talked about how they've tried multiple things they tried a smoothie machine, they've tried all sorts of things, and that didn't bring in the revenue that they thought it was going to pay for that position.
Did they have an actual deficit number?
They did at the time, but I don't recall it off the top.
I'm just curious whether it's continuing to accelerate.
I don't know. I believe it was around $17,000 that they were in deficit at this point in time, as of
For this year?
for up until the beginning of May. So it was going to be even more for May and June.
School lunch fund's difficult to follow because your reimbursement from the state doesn't come in until the following month. So you're always
And
trying
also,
to figure that in.
the kids aren't buying the
Right.
lunches because of the program that they're tied into.
Right. At Halifax, we actually cut staff because we had to be able to, and so far, I believe that we're not making a lot, but I think we're gonna be in the black.
So that was the big discussion at the Silver Lake meeting for the budget for this year. And they did talk about the budget implications for selling the land, that Kingston's portion of buying the land would be donated back to Silver Lake.
But donated for capital
It's
improvements?
donated for capital improvements, is the way it was worded. So Halifax would get about 33% of the 250, Plimpton would get 11%, and Kingston would get 55%. So that 55% would stay with Silver Lake to be used for capital improvements.
And this is outside their E and D.
Well, eventually, you know, again,
It depends on how the legislation
yeah.
is worded.
Because if that money suddenly goes into E and D, that's gonna put them above capacity again.
No,
Oh, that's right, because they're spending 50% this year for capital.
yeah, I don't know what they have, what, they didn't have an estimate of what money they would have left over right now. Christine was working on reconciling all the budgets and,
You know, that was kind of the number that was thrown
Yeah.
around, so.
so that was it. On that. We have reserve fund transfers to line items. And it's, everyone's read the budgets, I'm sure.
I know it hasn't that much.
Ballots now, Peg. It's okay.
All right.
Yeah, it's 6 o'clock tonight.
Someone has to.
That's the reserve fund transfer.
Okay, so we have a reserve fund transfer dated June 6, 16. This is, the amount requested is $1,175 to be transferred to the banking payroll expenses. The present balance of the current appropriation is $168.86. This is to pay the remaining bills for this fiscal year. This was the first year we had to meet the new ACA regulations for reporting to the government. We had to pay a programming fee, now annual, plus related expenses. These expenses totaled $1,139.53. So, do we know if we have this amount correct in the upcoming fiscal budget?
I believe she did increase it.
Yeah, we did discuss the increase in that line item, and she did mention the
I
ACA
didn't look it up, but I
compliance.
believe she did increase it.
Okay, so, is there a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion to approve.
Any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Number 3 is 613. What those ones? Who is this?
Nikki.
She never responded back the other night.
Probably got a handful of puppies.
Are you going tomorrow?
I was just gonna ask too, are you still on?
I can, I completely dropped sync on, but certainly can do that.
Because I'm catching grief about committing such a birthday.
It's not your idea of an ideal birthday.
I no plans, I didn't think it was a big deal, but okay.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Do you know where you're going?
My guess would be probably Buffalo Wild
Hanover?
So is she,
She didn't say no. I left her a message and told her.
I haven't heard from her. Maybe just go and get it.
You try?
Good try.
I did it,
And
Kendra, I did it
tomorrow's meeting.
this way, so.
It's posted online.
Well, it's-
I'm sorry.
It's posted online.
Okay, I just was curious what time I should be here for
Oh, I have it.
I think you're 7:35.
7:30.
Yeah,
I have it somewhere.
yeah, that's it.
Okay, so we have a line item transfer. Please transfer the amount of $285.42 from the library clerical wages account. The budget amount for this fiscal year was $163,376. The current balance is $60,403 as of April 30th. The reason for the excess balance in this account is a change in personnel. 2, the library director salary. The budget amount for this fiscal year was $63,106. Current balance in this account is $10,929 as of April 30th. The reason for the deficit in this projected account is paid interim director salary while still paying director salary. So the amount requested to be transferred is $285.42 from the library clerical wages account to the director's salary account. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second? All those, any further discussion? All those in favor, aye?
All right.
Unanimous. Okay. Second line item transfer is please transfer the amount of $200 from the streetlight account. Current budget for this fiscal year was $27,300. The current balance in this account is $5,843.11. The reason for the excess balance in this account, still time left in the fiscal year and no repair issues. 2, the traffic lights. The current budget amount for this fiscal year is $5,500. The current balance in this account is $243.99. The reason for the projected deficit in this account, still time left in fiscal year and the lights needed multiple
Still
repairs.
payments to be made.
The payments to be made?
Yeah, we have a couple of months left that we have to pay on
Okay.
the electrical account. And the traffic lights, I don't know if you noticed all those little LED bulbs? In windstorms, they take a beating. So we've had to have them repaired a couple of times.
Okay. So the amount requested is $200 from the street lights to the traffic lights. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do you have aloe coming, Kendra?
I do.
Because your face has turned like 3 shades since the meeting began.
Sorry. I've already had some poisoning.
Today?
No, from graduation last week.
From last weekend?
Yeah.
Today being outside exacerbated.
Yeah.
I can feel myself getting a little warm. I did use sunblock today, and a lot of it, so. I didn't choose to relive the whole feeling.
It's just glowing.
Right? Because that's so bad.
Okay.
So like we
Charlie, you know, you already have copies of these too. I'll give them to
So is there anything else left to do tonight?
Noel.
I'll tell you.
I'm putting them in the mail folder right now.
There you go. Thank you.
Stu's motion.
Busted my really. Did you even see the ones that Mel corrected that I left? Like one whole page of another meeting in there? And I had to
Of course
just
we
cross the
did.
whole back.
Of course we did.
Right, because you read them, right? Yeah. Let's go.
Okay, meeting minutes.
Did everybody read them, or shall I hand them out, or shall I just read the dates out?
Read the dates off.
Okay. Monday, February 29th,
Who was present? Oh, yeah, hand them.
Gordon, Mel, Stu, and Julian.
We could vote on that.
Vote that one. Is there a motion to approve?
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Mel needs to sign that one.
All right, Monday, March 14th was Gordon, Linda, Mel, and Stu.
We could do that one.
Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. And these all have the changes, correct?
Yes. Was that 14th?
Yep.
For some reason I double printed. I think I double printed just in case somebody reads it.
Justin.
All right, Monday, April 4th, everyone was present.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
This is the right? Monday, April 11th, Linda, Mel, Nikki, Stu, and Julian.
Okay.
Oh, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So you get to move them from the draft over to real versions now?
And I get to post them online. That's so exciting. I haven't even posted them. Monday, April 25th, Gordon, Linda, Mel, Nikki, Stu, and Angela.
No. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Looks like we also have Monday, the 25th executive session.
Okay. Has that,
Same.
and has everything that we talked about in that meeting contract been settled?
Contracts haven't been signed yet, so it can be,
So we
it can be
we can vote to
approved,
approve
but
all
it's
with
not
hold.
released.
Correct. All right, so,
So just, I guess, keep a list of
Yeah.
the minutes that we need to approve after the contracts.
I will
You guys can approve it.
Yeah, so is there a motion to approve and hold until the contracts are settled?
There is a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Monday, May 2nd,
Also.
Gordon, Mel, Nikki, Stu, Julian.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Monday, May 2nd, executive session.
Okay, is there a motion to approve and hold until the contracts are signed?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I made that correction that you asked, number one. It's obviously you can't make the motions.
We could.
A little bit out of order, but.
Good.
She hasn't paid attention.
Monday, May 9th, let's see, everybody.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And Monday, May 23rd, let's see, Gordon, Linda, Mel, and Stu.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Bam.
All right.
I crossed out the whole back page. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
See, that wasn't so bad.
No, it wasn't. Next one. Okay, so our next meeting is in 2 weeks.
Yes.
Stu's coming tomorrow for the reappointments with Nikki and myself. Thank you. very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Appreciate it so much.
27. Next
Do
meeting.
do we need to verify that Nikki's on board with this?
She didn't say, she didn't respond back and say no. I left her a voicemail,
Yeah.
so. She can just not be sworn in by Barbara at the next meeting. Okay, anything else? Public participation, Sandy?
Not necessarily a discussion of budget, but wage and personnel is having difficulty filling the third position. And with Maureen sick, I know Sue had reached out.
Yeah, the problem is that we didn't set it up for that situation. We set it up if we only had one actual member or 0 members. We didn't set it up for one member who was well and one member that was sick. So the bylaw allows us to, if we had only one person, someone from finance and someone from select one would fill those second and third seats. If we had 0, I can't remember who the third person would be, but there's a way we wrote it up. This was, Sandy, 15 years ago we ran into this, something like that. But we didn't set it up for
This
this.
event you have.
And so, unless it falls in one of those exceptions, we can't get somebody from another board or committee on there.
Okay.
Because it's very specific, wage and personnel people can't have any association with any department or board or whatever. So I don't have a good solution.
Okay.
So we need to put a change into the upcoming special town meeting.
Yeah, I mean, you can imagine, if someone's sick, then you can do this. But how sick does this person have to be? And what happens when this person comes back and says they're no longer, I mean,
I know,
yeah, I mean, it would be easier, actually, if Maureen resigned. Then we could have someone from finance and selectmen fill. Then, when Maureen was ready to come back, we just reappoint her and suddenly we're back to 2 full members. That would be something that could fit within the bounds of the bylaw.
so,
Just the concern is, I know the next several weeks, should Maureen not physically
Right.
be able to attend, we've got some pretty significant paperwork issues that we
Yeah.
have to address as far as step changes and everything else.
oh, decide, yeah, the meetings.
I'll send a note to Sue. I had already written Sue about this, because she did reach out to me. And I guess what I'll have to do is send her another note and say, this is the only way I can see how it can come out as Maureen resigned for the time being. And if she's ready to come back, then we'll put it back
Yeah,
on.
there has to be some kind of recourse, because we have to be able to conduct
Yeah.
business.
Anything else? Let's do it. A motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Thank you all.
So if somebody else wants to take that lead, I'm now semi-retired.